So obviously some of the most racist people that ever lived in history are alive right now, and they tell people to try to make it so whites, Jews, and LGBT people kind of seem like they're controlling other people and that they have power. And think of occult people who are like wizards and witches, thinking that they're telling people what to do and that they're exerting power. Believe it or not, that's what's actually going on here. So when I slightly reviewed the video, I could tell that they had edited my voice to try to make it so I sound weak and submissive or something. That's not the case. But I'm going to post it anyway and listen to what I'm saying here. Nobody is equal to me or above me. And anyone who tries to pretend that's not the case magically, okay, they're even lower. Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So we see a lot of females who seem to look Jewish, and they seem to have taken on the mentality of Jewish females and people who are like them. And generally speaking, you know, with almost all Jewish females I've ever come across, they're very kind of clannish, right? They only date Jews and people who are kind of mixed Jews, who you know, fall under the kind of Jewish corporate and synagogue umbrella and the various factions of the Jews. You know, there's liberal Jews, there's Sephardic, there's Ashkenazi, right? There's more recent converts. There's people who, you know, trace their family lineage further back. There's rich, there's poor, there's Israeli, there's Brazilian. You know, there's lots of different types, but they all have like a sort of date Jews only mentality. Okay, and for those who've been listening to my videos, you know that I don't approve of people that, you know, any type of people from any race who only date their own. So we know, as you know, we're grown people. You know, people have the option to agree to disagree. People have free will. I don't twist their arm and say, hey, you know, but I weigh in and I tell you what I know is right. And okay, so I'm not kind of after, you know, Jewish females or something. I'm not trying to date a Jewish female or crypto-Jewish female. The point is they really embody those cultural barriers that I talk about. So as soon as you see someone who's a Jewish person or is taking on that mentality and looks Jewish, it's like more, you know, the cultural barrier is more intense than somebody who's Hindu, okay? And this goes back to, you know, my rightful place, right? Martial and marital. So people should give me my rightful place because it's right. Because that, you know, say if you're a Jewish person, right, a Jewish gentleman or a Jewish woman, that you should look at it in terms of, you know, what does Proverbs tell you? Deuteronomy says treat the foreigner fairly, be honest about these things, right? Understand God's message. You know, in one of these books, a donkey was rebuking somebody. So certainly another human being, when he's in the right, should be able to rebuke you or your whole group of people. If a Gentile had joined with Isaiah in rebuking the Jews, and if God directed him to, you know, team up with him, what have you, he'd be right to do so. So we see that in Isaiah 58, where God is telling Isaiah to rebuke the Jews and to declare their rebellion. So when we see in the New Testament, right, when the Messiah comes, whether the Jews accept the Messiah or not, okay, as a character in the story, we see that there's, you know, he's covering the kind of, he's doing what you'd expect the Messiah to do, which is look at this thing fairly and say, okay, I'm going to treat the Gentiles fairly like God did in the Old Testament when he elevated the king of Assyria momentarily, the king of Babylon momentarily. He said, you know, we'll let you punish the Jews and so on and so forth. Okay? And we see with Isaiah, there's no Jew or Gentile in Isaiah 66 as those who rebelled against God and those who didn't. Can you see the distinction? And we see that, you know, in Proverbs it says that a servant can rule over his master. So we see a lot of things that show us that there's a formula that exists, that people are based, you know, judged based on their righteousness, like Proverbs 16:12. And so it's logical, okay, to understand that it's part of the Jewish religion. And I know a lot of Jews are nowhere near serious about their, you know, about Jewish religion, okay, but it's part of their religion for a Gentile to rebuke them in the Spirit of God and to exert authority over them. This is something that a lot of them don't want to admit, and a lot of Jews who are openly satanic don't want to admit. Okay, now that's not really what this video is really about, but I just wanted to cover that, to cover all the odds and ends, okay? So, again, people should give me my rightful place because it's right, and also because I'll be more than happy to not date a Jewish female or a crypto-Jewish female. I'll never be gay, but I'll be more than happy to not do those things. because my feeling of them generally is that they're not that interested in me. They have cultural barriers up. They're very clannish. They don't have certain characteristics that appeal to my heart. So, but since there's so many of them here in America, there's so many of them in Brazil, which is another place you can go. They've really much, there's a lot of them in the Philippines and Thailand. They've really gone to these places where, and they have global networks where people typically go to kind of escape the unfair dating process in America. And so, it's easier for someone like me, who's different than everyone else, to kind of find the perfect suitable helper without someone playing matchmaker or something, okay, if he's given his rightful place and he's famous. So when they went out of their way to team up with the Gentile to deny me attractive women, okay, and they don't give me my rightful place, this is why. This directly translates to me being single at 42 for doing God's work. You see what I'm saying? So it's no offense to the Jews and anyone else. Again, I'm just spitting the facts. So this is a series I'm going to try very, very hard to explain why females have cultural barriers that are extremely unfair, that are frankly evil, without breaking the TikTok rules. Okay, so when they talk about, that they want TikTok to unite people, okay, this is what's dividing. It's a cultural barrier. It's what's keeping me from finding an attractive female as the most righteous person that ever lived in one of the most populated countries in the world, right? That's division that females as a group are causing, and not a single one of them rallies to me to kind of address this in a way that's fair, just, and right. Okay, so that's not this kind of hateful ideology or bullying and harassment. This is something that's consistent with your rules. And it's even consistent with the theme of your website. And if you look at America recently, you not censoring all these other groups, these liberals and conservatives, they're dividing this country. And you let them, go on and on with their politics. And this country's in a horrible shape. There's no signs that they're going to be united anytime soon. Okay? And that's because the scale that you're using in regards to who you censor and who you don't. A lot of LGBT people are poor and homeless, Jewish people, white people, every race. Okay, lots of people are suffering because of inflation. There was 1 million evictions in the last 12 months or so. People are doing really bad. They're really mad. They're really bitter. A lot of people are suffering. They're turning to drugs. They're dropping dead from drugs left and right. You name it. So what they're doing is not uniting us. It's failing, and we need to criticize every group because they're not doing enough. Okay, because they're not doing the right thing, because they're acting like selfish people as groups, and they need to see where they're wrong. They need to debate me on these. They need to discuss it like grown people. We need to have constructive conversations about these things, and to solve it in a way that's fair, just, and right. And everyone's got to admit, where they're wrong. Okay, I have many, many videos where I say, in case I was too harsh or this, that, and the other thing, that I apologize and so on and so forth. And I shouldn't have to apologize because I've basically been on point completely the whole time. So don't you think everyone else should look within themselves and see why they're missing their mark? Okay? Because I'm nailing my mark here, and everyone's got their cultural barriers up. They're treating me unfairly. They have no viable counter-argument. Okay? When I look inside myself, I see perfection because I'm doing everything right. Because I go way the distance to make sure that I do everything right.